This semester, I had the opportunity to go through my field experience with two extremely different teachers. I have learned a lot about what I do and don't want to do as an educator thanks to them. My first placement was at Ridgeview Middle School with Stephanie Neff. She has 3 choir classes, all composed of 7th and 8th graders. Stephanie's biggest problem was her lack of classroom management skills. She didn't know how to control her classroom, and students misbehaved all of the time. Students would get her off topic a lot, and then she would go into a rant about something or some kind of personal story. When she finally realized that she was too off topic, she would yell at her students for not being focused. She threatened kids with detentions all of the time, but never actually gave any out. In Evertson's article that we read for class, Kunin's concepts of classroom management are described. With itness is one concept, and is the degree to which the teacher corrects misbehavior before it intensifies or spreads to more students, and also targets the correct student when doing so. Stephanie definitely was not with it. She would often yell at the whole class for the actions of a few people and wouldn't actually punish the individuals who were misbehaving. She often would tell students to be quiet, and then when they continued to talk, nothing actually happened. This would cause more of the students to lose focus. Another of Kunin's concepts is called overlapping, which is how the teacher handles 2 or more simultaneous events. Stephanie did not have a handle on this. She even told her class once that when many of them were talking or misbehaving, it made her feel anxious, and it felt like she had 30 parents yelling at her all at once. In Deborah Gordon's article, Classroom Management Problems and Solutions, she mentions that teachers need to have a specific classroom management system. The only system that Stephanie had was a cell phone system where she used hanging organizers for calculators and had students put their cell phones in them at the beginning of each class. While this was a good idea, students still misbehaved, and Stephanie had no other system in place for discipline. I think if Stephanie were to read Gordon's article, she would not only benefit from having a classroom management system, but she could also learn Gordon's 4 levels of seriousness that list specific types of behavior and the solutions for them. I did not learn much about lesson planning from Stephanie at all. The first few times that Logan and I were there, she had a lesson plan written out on a sticky note, or she couldn't find her lesson at all. She eventually made Logan and me a copy of her lesson plan for 1 week, and she barely even followed it. It took her about 2 or 3 weeks to finish the week-long lesson plan that she had made. She did not transition very well between activities. Students ended up singing for a total of 10 to 15 minutes during the 50-minute class period because of how off-task they would get. Another part of the problem was that her choir class was treated as an elective that fulfilled a certain requirement each student had to complete. She received a lot of students in her classes that couldn't get into other electives that actually had limits on them. Some of her students didn't actually want to sing or be in choir. I think in the future it would be wise for her to advocate for a general music class instead of having 3 periods of choir that all learn the same songs. Some students just aren't interested in being in an ensemble, and I feel like she would be really good at project-based learning, like in Tobias's article, with a general music class because she does a lot of projects with her personal development class that she also teaches. While I was able to be in front of the class every day during this placement and had a great teaching demonstration, I felt really bummed that I was only able to learn about what I didn't want to do in a classroom. My second field experience was in a completely different environment. Our second placement was at J.C. Summer Elementary School with Jennifer Sizemore. We were only able to be there for 1st and 2nd grade on the 2 days that we were there every week. Jennifer has a totally different style from Stephanie. Jennifer does have a classroom management system like in Gordon's article. She has rules for the music classroom hanging up on the wall which say things like everyone must sing and everyone must participate or everyone must be kind and stuff like that. When a student was misbehaving, she would refer to the rules of the music classroom and would give them a warning about their behavior. If they continued to misbehave, students would be sent to timeout, which would be sitting at a desk that is facing away from classroom activities. At timeout, they would have to devise a plan of action for how they will behave for the rest of music class. When they raised their hand, that would let Jennifer know that they were ready to tell her her plan. She would listen to it and then decide if they could go back to the class or not. If a student still misbehaves in timeout, they would be sent out of the room to another teacher. While I think that this is a good system, there are a few kinks in it. Sometimes it takes her a rather long time to get the student's plan because she is constantly doing things with the rest of the class. Some students are also sent to timeout for doing things that other students are also doing, but those students don't get in trouble. Jennifer does have the with itness that is mentioned in Everson's article. She's able to tell a student that they have a warning or will be going to timeout, and then she doesn't dwell on it and moves right along in her lesson. She captures the bad behavior before it intensifies. She also keeps momentum and smoothness, which are also mentioned in Evertson's article. This means that she is able to keep the lesson moving when a certain activity goes wrong, and she is able to wrap it up and move on to something else. Smoothness is staying on track with lessons. She definitely does this. In her lesson plans, she has her objectives written out in all activities for the class. She puts her specific transitions in her lesson plans and exactly what the teacher and the student will be doing during each activity. I think that writing all of this out helps with the smoothness of each lesson. Stephanie Neff never really assessed anyone in her choir, but Jennifer assesses all of the time. She does individual assessments in class for the students to earn a game. For example, a student will have to sing one of a few solfege examples written out on the board with the correct rhythm, and they also have to match her pitch. She has a scale of 1 to 3 for their grades. After a student does this in front of the class, she asks the student what one thing they think they did right was. Then she asks the class for what else the student did right. Then she will tell the student what they need to work on, and the student will try to fix that. In these assessments, she uses specific positive and specific negative feedback as mentioned in Biddlecombe's article, Assessing and Enhancing Feedback of Choral Conductors. In his article, he says that his research shows that conductors are more likely to give specific negative feedback and just general positive feedback instead of giving specific positive feedback. I think that it is significant to tell students why they are doing something right, so I'm happy that Jennifer gives specific positive feedback. If a student doesn't get something on the second or third try that she gave them specific negative feedback on, she will give them non-specific positive feedback like nice try or that's better. I am so thankful for the opportunities that I've had during each of my placements this semester. I've realized what kind of teacher I wish to be and am very excited to become an educator. I now know how I want to make my lesson plans and how I want to make my future classroom management system.